Ladies and gentlemen, most people think money stress comes from lack of money, but that's not entirely accurate. What actually creates financial stress is a lack of clarity, lack of structure, and a dysregulated nervous system constantly operating in fear. If you want to never stress about money again, you must stop seeing it as an emotional enemy and start treating it as a system you can understand, influence, and eventually master. The brain doesn't like uncertainty. When it perceives a gap between where you are and where you want to be, especially in survival domains like money, it triggers your limbic system, the part responsible for fear, anxiety, and impulsive decision-making. Tracking your spending daily is one of the most powerful habits you can build if you want to eliminate stress about money. It's not just a financial strategy, it's a way to bring your nervous system into a state of clarity and control. When you know exactly where your money is going, you shift from reactive thinking to proactive awareness. Most financial anxiety doesn't come from lack of money. It comes from not knowing what's happening with your money. The brain is designed to detect uncertainty as a threat. So when you ignore your finances, you're creating an internal environment of stress and instability. Every time you swipe a card, spend cash, or subscribe to something digitally, your brain logs the event unconsciously. But when you don't bring that data into your conscious awareness through tracking, it sits in the background as noise. This noise builds over time, creating a sense of overwhelm. You start to feel like your money is out of control, even if it's not. It's not about being poor or wealthy. It's about whether your brain feels like the system is chaotic or structured. The simple act of writing down your expenses creates structure, and the brain loves structure. You don't need fancy apps, although they can help. What you need is consistency. Open a notebook, keep a note on your phone, or build a simple spreadsheet. The format doesn't matter. What matters is that you do it every single day without fail. Every dollar counts. When you record your spending, you train your brain to stay engaged in your financial reality. That engagement builds awareness, and awareness is the first step toward transformation. When people skip this habit, what usually happens is a buildup of unconscious guilt. They know they're overspending, but don't know how much. They know money is leaking, but they don't know where. That vagueness creates anxiety. You start avoiding your bank app. You feel nervous checking your balance. You don't want to look at your credit card statement. This avoidance pattern is the exact opposite of what your brain needs to feel financially safe. But when you track daily, something shifts. You begin to replace anxiety with data. And data is neutral. It gives your brain something to work with. One of the most overlooked benefits of tracking your spending is what it does to your sense of control. Every time you manually write down or log a purchase, you send a neurological signal to your brain. I am paying attention. This sense of presence calms the amygdala, the fear center of the brain. It tells your nervous system we're not lost, we're managing. We're seeing things clearly. That 1-second action builds long-term emotional stability. You'll also begin to notice patterns you never saw before. Maybe every Friday you emotionally spend on takeout. Maybe stress leads to impulse purchases online. Maybe certain subscriptions you forgot about are draining your account monthly. These patterns were always there, but you were blind to them. Once you see them, you can change them. That's how you evolve, not by judging yourself, but by observing yourself. Tracking is a mirror. Tracking is a mirror. It shows you who you really are with money. Whether you're making $5 a day or $500,000 a year, the brain's relationship to money doesn't depend on the amount. It depends on clarity. A person making $30,000 who tracks every cent can feel more empowered and less stressed than a millionaire who avoids their finances. Because stress isn't about external numbers. It's about internal regulation. And tracking is one of the simplest, most direct ways to regulate your financial mind. In neuroscience, we talk about the concept of a closing open loops. An open loop is any unresolved task or vague commitment. Your brain tracks these open loops in the background. Every untracked purchase is an open loop. Every forgotten expense is an open loop. These open loops create mental fatigue. They drain your cognitive resource. But when you sit down, even for 5 minutes at the end of the day, and record your expenses, you close those loops. You give your brain resolution. This is a powerful form of self-care. Another reason daily tracking works so well is that it changes your behavior over time. When you know you have to log that $8 latte or $60 impulse buy, you become more mindful before you spend. You pause. That pause creates space. And in that space, you can make a better choice. This is not about shame, it's about alignment. When your spending aligns with your values, you feel powerful. When it doesn't, you feel conflicted. Tracking exposes that misalignment and gives you a chance to course correct. Eventually, the act of tracking becomes part of your identity. You start to see yourself as someone who's responsible with money, someone who's intentional, someone who's building a better future, not just reacting to the present. That identity shift is everything, because how you see yourself determines how you behave, and how you behave shapes your financial reality. If you want to never stress about money again, start with this one habit. Track every dollar. Do it daily. Do it honestly. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for awareness. Over time, you'll notice that the numbers become less scary. The habits become easier, and the sense of fear and chaos begins to fade. You're not just managing money. You're rewiring your brain for peace, clarity, and long-term freedom. Automating your financial life is one of the most underrated strategies for eliminating money-related stress. While most people try to rely on willpower and daily decision-making to manage their finances, neuroscience shows us that this is a losing battle. The human brain is not designed to handle constant micro-decisions, especially in areas loaded with emotion like money. Every time you ask yourself, should I save this month? Or did I pay that bill? You create mental friction. That friction builds up, draining cognitive energy, spiking stress levels, and opening the door to impulsive decisions. The solution is automation. When you automate your savings, bills, investments, and debt payments, you're removing the daily burden of choice. You're designing an environment that works for you, even when your motivation is low or your day is chaotic. This is not just a financial tactic. It's a nervous system reset. Automation reduces uncertainty. It creates predictability, and predictability is something your brain is hardwired to crave, especially when it comes to survival-based systems like money. Let's look at what's really happening neurologically. Every time you manually pay a bill, decide whether to save, or wonder if you have enough left over for essentials, your brain activates the limbic system. This is the area involved in threat detection and emotional response. If something feels unclear, that part of your brain sounds the alarm. We're unsafe. It doesn't matter how much you earn. If your money flow feels chaotic, your body will respond with anxiety, muscle tension, and often poor sleep. But when systems are in place, when money moves automatically without constant input, your brain relaxes. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational planning and executive function, stays in control. You think more clearly, you make better decisions, and most importantly, you feel in control. One of the first areas to automate is savings. Decide on a percentage or fixed amount you want to save monthly. It doesn't have to be big. Even $20 is enough to begin reconditioning your brain. The key is consistency. When your paycheck hits, a small amount should automatically go to a separate savings account, not a shared one. Not one you can instantly access through your main banking app. A separate account that feels like it's not meant to be touched. Over time, this repeated action trains your brain to see savings as a default, not a chore. This removes decision fatigue. There's no internal debate about whether you should save. It just happens. Your nervous system registers that your future is being cared for, and your background stress begins to fade. Next, automate your bill payments. Any regular expense, rent, utilities, phone bill, subscriptions, should leave your account automatically. This serves two purposes. It ensures you never forget a payment, and it prevents the stress of scrambling at the last minute. There's a real psychological cost to forgetting payments or paying late. The sense of being disorganized fuels guilt, and guilt reinforces avoidance. But when bills are handled without effort, your brain no longer has to track those deadlines. You clear mental space for things that actually matter. Automating debt payments is equally important. Even if you can only pay the minimum, set it to happen automatically. This prevents late fees, protects your credit score, and reduces anxiety. If you can go further, say, pay a little extra each month, do it automatically. Don't wait for motivation to strike. Automate it while your brain is calm. and let the system do the heavy lifting. Your future self will thank you, not just financially, but mentally and emotionally. Investing is another area where automation creates immense long-term value. Most people avoid investing because they believe it requires constant research, perfect timing, or large sums of money. None of that is true. What matters more than timing is consistency. Set up an automatic transfer, even a small one, into a retirement account or investment fund. Over time, those small contributions compound into real wealth. More importantly, they build a new identity, someone who is planning for the future. That identity shift rewires your reward circuitry. Suddenly, the act of investing feels less like a sacrifice and more like a win. One of the most overlooked benefits of automation is emotional regulation. Think about how many negative emotions are tied to money: guilt, fear, regret, shame. Most of those emotions arise from inconsistency or avoidance, but when systems are in place, the emotional intensity begins to fade. You're no longer surprised by overdrafts, missed payments, or unexpected shortages. You're not waking up at 3 a.m. worried about whether you handled something. You've built a system that runs while you sleep. That reliability changes the way your brain interprets your environment. You feel safer, more in control, less reactive. People often worry that automation will make them feel disconnected from their finances. But the opposite is true. When the basics are automated, you're free to focus your energy on strategy, not survival. You can look at your big picture goals. You can analyze patterns and plan intentionally rather than constantly putting out fires. You begin to see money as a system you engineer, not an enemy you react to. That psychological shift is everything. The ultimate goal is to build a financial life that runs itself, at least at the foundational level. That doesn't mean you never check in. It means that day-to-day stress vanishes. You replace chaos with calm. You create mental spaciousness. And from that spaciousness, you make better decisions, not just about money, but about your entire life. Because when your nervous system is regulated, your mind is clear. And when your mind is clear, you unlock the freedom to grow, build, and create. Automation is the key to that freedom. It's not about having more money. It's about having fewer money problems. And that's how you stop stressing permanently. One of the most transformative things you can do for your mental health and financial well-being is to disassociate your identity from money. This isn't just a mindset shift, it's a neurological recalibration. Most people don't even realize that they've tied their self-worth to their bank account. When they succeed financially, they feel valuable, confident, and respected. When they experience loss, debt, or instability, they internalize it as failure. But money is not identity, it's a tool. And until you can separate who you are from what you have, you'll always be vulnerable to emotional chaos every time your financial situation changes. The brain is constantly evaluating social value. It's wired for comparison. From an evolutionary standpoint, status and resource control meant survival. But in the modern world, this instinct backfires. Your nervous system responds to financial highs and lows as if they're personal attacks or validations. You get a promotion and you feel like you matter more. You lose income and suddenly you feel like less of a person. This automatic linking of self-worth to financial status creates emotional volatility. You might feel euphoric one moment and ashamed the next, not because your circumstances are truly life-threatening, but because your identity has fused with your financial outcomes. To change this, you have to retrain your brain. You have to create enough internal space between your financial reality and your core identity so that when money fluctuates, your sense of self remains steady. This starts with awareness. Notice the language you use when thinking or talking about money. Phrases like "I'm broke," "I'm behind," or "I'm doing well" are not neutral observations. They're self-definitions. They embed financial performance into your self-concept. And over time, that connection becomes internalized. But you are not broke. You are experiencing a temporary cash flow shortage. You are not behind. You are on your own path with unique variables. You are not your net worth. You are the one managing it. When you tie your identity to money, every decision becomes emotionally charged. You don't just spend or save. You prove something to yourself or others. You don't just invest. You try to validate your intelligence. You don't just struggle, you spiral into shame. And shame is a powerful inhibitor of growth. It shuts down learning, curiosity, and experimentation. People who carry shame around money avoid looking at their accounts, delay important conversations, and sabotage opportunities. Not because they lack discipline, but because they've attached too much meaning to the numbers. Detaching your identity doesn't mean becoming careless or indifferent. In fact, it allows you to become more strategic. When your self-worth is not on the line, you can analyze financial situations objectively. You can take risks without fear of ego death. You can make mistakes without spiraling. You can learn. That's how mastery is built, not through perfection, but through feedback and adjustment. And you can only do that if your nervous system feels safe enough to engage without fear of being diminished by the outcome. A big part of this shift involves redefining your values. Ask yourself, who am I when money is not in the equation? What do I care about? What do I contribute? What do I stand for? These questions bring you back to identity. Grounded in character, not currency. When your sense of self is rooted in traits like integrity, resilience, creativity, or service, you become unshakable. Money can rise and fall, but your core stays intact. There's a practice that helps reinforce this. Whenever you encounter a financial trigger, whether it's an unexpected bill, a windfall, or a comparison moment, pause and ask, what does this actually say about me? Then answer with the truth. Not the emotional reaction, but the grounded response. For example, a large expense doesn't mean you're irresponsible. It means you need to plan better next time. A financial win doesn't mean you're superior. It means a strategy worked or timing aligned. Separate the facts from the feelings. This is how you teach your brain to respond rather than react. You can also reinforce the separation through journaling. Regularly write about your financial situation using language that describes behavior, not identity. He spent more than I planned this week is very different from I'm bad with money. I didn't save much. This month is different from I'm a failure. This distinction may seem small, but over time it rewires your self-perception. You stop seeing yourself as flawed and start seeing yourself as a work in progress. That shift opens the door to sustainable change. Another useful strategy is to diversify your sources of self-worth. People who define themselves only through achievement, especially financial achievement, are emotionally fragile. They need constant wins to feel okay. But those who cultivate fulfillment through relationships, health, personal growth, spirituality, or service are more resilient. When one area dips, others support them. They have a wide foundation, and that foundation protects them from collapsing when money gets tight. Ultimately, the goal is to live in alignment, not performance, to make financial choices that reflect your values. When you disassociate your identity from money, you free yourself to use money wisely without fear or ego. You begin to relate to it as a neutral, powerful tool, one that you're learning to manage more skillfully every day. And with that mindset, your stress begins to dissolve. Not because your external circumstances are perfect, but because your internal foundation is solid. Money no longer defines you. It becomes something you work with, not something you are. And from that place, everything becomes easier, clearer, lighter. That's where real peace begins. Building momentum with money isn't about making massive leaps. It's about creating micro wins, small, consistent victories that signal progress to your brain. These wins are not about impressing others or achieving perfection. They're about activating your reward system, reinforcing habits, and giving your nervous system proof that change is happening. When most people think about fixing their finances, they imagine a dramatic turnaround, paying off huge debt, suddenly saving thousands, or going from broke to wealthy overnight. But the brain doesn't work well with overwhelming change. It thrives on incremental success. The reason most people fail to stick with financial goals isn't lack of discipline. It's because they set targets too big, too abstract, or too distant. The brain loses interest when the reward is too far away. That's where micro wins come in. A micro win is any small action that moves you closer to stability, control, or freedom. It might be tracking your spending for one day. It might be making your lunch instead of buying it. It might be transferring $5 to savings. The amount or size is irrelevant. What matters is that the action reinforces identity. I am someone who is improving my financial life. These tiny shifts activate the brain's dopamine system. Dopamine is not just a pleasure chemical. It's a motivation chemical. It's released when your brain recognizes that you're making progress toward a goal. Micro wins trigger this response. Each small success gives your brain a sense of momentum. That momentum creates energy, and energy leads to more action. You start stacking habits, you begin to crave progress. You create a loop. Action, reward, confidence, more action. It's a neurological snowball. Micro wins also regulate your stress response. Financial anxiety often comes from feeling stuck, like nothing you do matters. But when you complete one small task, your brain receives feedback. That made a difference. You go from helpless to empowered, from frozen to in motion, and once you're in motion, it's easier to stay in motion. The hardest part of any change is the beginning ending. Micro wins create a low-friction entry point. They make starting easier, which makes continuing inevitable. Let's say you have a goal of saving $5,000. That can feel overwhelming. But if you break it down to saving $5 this week, you give yourself a win that's achievable today. You reinforce the behavior of saving without waiting until you've hit the full target. And if you repeat that process consistently, you not only get closer to the $5,000, you train your identity. You start to see yourself as a saver. And identity is the foundation of lasting change. Micro wins are especially powerful when they replace avoidance. Avoiding financial reality, like ignoring bills, not opening emails, or skipping budget reviews, keeps the brain in a stress loop. But the moment you face something you've been avoiding, even in a tiny way, the brain experiences relief. That relief is chemical. You're no longer running from the lion. You're facing it. And in doing so, your stress response softens. Micro wins break avoidance patterns by proving that taking action is safer than staying stuck. Another layer of micro wins involves tracking and celebrating them. The brain needs reinforcement. If you don't consciously acknowledge your progress, your nervous system might miss the win entirely. Keep a journal. Use a habit tracker. Write down every financial action you take, no matter how small. ES, subscription, packed lunch, open bank app. ES, sent in dollars to savings. When you reflect on your wins, you amplify the signal in your brain. This matters. Do it again. That signal builds habit loops. And habit loops create momentum. It's important to understand that micro wins don't have to feel impressive. In fact, they often feel boring. That's okay. The brain loves repetition. The key is consistency, not intensity. If you focus only on big results, you'll miss the compounding power of small actions. But if you focus on the process, on winning each day, you'll notice that things begin to shift, not just in your finances, but in your confidence. You stop doubting yourself. You stop delaying action. You start building trust with yourself. That trust is the foundation of resilience. Financial transformation rarely happens in a single breakthrough. It happens in hundreds of quiet decisions. Decisions to show up, to act, to learn, to try again. Micro wins are not shortcuts. They're the real work. They're what change looks like from the inside. And over time, they lead to major outcomes. What starts as tracking $5 turns into tracking everything. What starts as reading one financial article turns into taking full control of your money. Each win is a brick. You're building something lasting. One of the greatest advantages of the micro-win strategy is that it works regardless of your income, background, or current situation. You don't need to be wealthy. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to wait. You just need to start. Start small. Start now. The only requirement is action. And with every micro-win, you're sending a powerful signal to your brain. I am capable. I am changing. I am building momentum. You rewire your mind and your financial life for long-term success. If your nervous system is in a state of chronic stress, no financial strategy will stick. The truth is, most people try to fix their money problems with logic, willpower, or spreadsheets. They read books, take courses, make budgets, and yet they sabotage themselves, relapse into bad habits, or freeze up when it's time to take action. Why? Because their nervous system is in survival mode. And survival mode is not a thinking state. It's a reacting state. If your body perceives threat, even subtle or psychological, your brain prioritizes immediate safety over long-term planning. That means you'll avoid looking at your accounts, delay hard decisions, and default to whatever feels comfortable in the moment, even if it's financially destructive. The nervous system controls everything. how you respond to stress, how you perceive risk, how much energy you have, and whether or not you can even access the parts of your brain responsible for decision making. When your system is dysregulated, when you're anxious, overwhelmed, or mentally foggy, your prefrontal cortex goes offline. That's the area of the brain responsible for planning, impulse control, and long-term thinking. In its place, your limbic system takes over, triggering fear-based responses like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You might lash out, shut down, overspend, avoid, or people please, none of which support financial health. This is why financial change must start with nervous system regulation. Sure, it's not about ignoring strategy. It's about making your body feel safe enough to apply that strategy. When your nervous system is calm, your brain is open. You can reflect clearly. You can delay gratification. You can tolerate discomfort. These are the core ingredients of financial growth. Without them, even the best plans fall apart under pressure. The problem is that money is deeply emotional. It's tied to survival, status, self-worth, and security. So even small money-related actions, like opening your bank app or having a budget conversation, can trigger a threat response. Your heart races, your stomach tightens, your thoughts spiral. This isn't irrational, it's biological. Your body remembers every past experience of scarcity, shame, or financial trauma. So the moment money enters the conversation, your nervous system pulls from those memories and responds with tension or fear. You're not lazy, you're not broken. You're reacting the way any human would if they felt unsafe. So the path forward is to teach your body that money is not a threat. You do this not by forcing action, but by regulating your state first. Take a deep breath before checking your balance. Ground yourself before reviewing your budget. Use physical techniques like box breathing, cold exposure, or movement to shift your physiology. These practices aren't just wellness trends. They're tools to bring your nervous system out of survival mode. And when you're out of survival, you're capable of choice. The more consistently you calm your system before engaging with finances, the more your brain begins to rewire its association with money. Instead of linking money to fear, shame, or failure, your brain starts to pair it with calm, clarity, and empowerment. That's how healing happens. Not through one big moment of breakthrough, but through repeated safe experiences. Over time, your tolerance increases. You can sit with discomfort longer. You can take actions that used to trigger avoidance. You build capacity and with it confidence. One powerful way to support nervous system safety around money is to create rituals. Rituals create predictability, and predictability calms the brain. Set a specific time and place where you interact with your finances. Make it familiar. Light a candle, play music, use the same notebook. Don't leave it to chance. When your brain knows what to expect, it feels less threatened. And when threat is reduced, growth is possible. Another key is to lower the bar. When you're dysregulated, your capacity shrinks. Instead of expecting yourself to fix your entire financial life in one sitting, commit to doing one small thing, like reviewing a single transaction or writing down what you spent that day. This creates a micro win, and that win signals safety to your brain. You did something hard and nothing bad happened. That signal accumulates. It rewires your system. Emotional regulation also helps with impulse control. Most people don't overspend because they're greedy. They overspend because they're trying to soothe themselves. When your system is overloaded, dopamine becomes the escape. Buying something gives you a momentary hit of pleasure, a brief feeling of control. But when your nervous system is regulated, your cravings decrease. You don't need to numb. You can sit with discomfort without reacting. That's where true discipline comes from, not willpower, but nervous system capacity. All of this leads to financial clarity. When your body is calm, your brain can sort through numbers without panic. You can look at debt without spiraling. You can plan without collapsing under shame. You begin to act from values, not reactivity. You respond instead of react, and that changes everything. So before you try to fix your finances, fix your state. Train your body to feel safe first. Give yourself nervous system support, breathwork, movement, structure, sleep, hydration. Use these tools daily, not just to feel good, but to unlock the version of you who can handle money wisely. Because the truth is, there's nothing wrong with your financial ability. There's only a body that hasn't been taught to feel safe in the process. When safety comes first, strategy follows naturally. When your nervous system is aligned, your behavior begins to match your intentions. That's when the real shifts begin. Not just on your bank statement, but in your mind, your body, and your life. Most people live reactively when it comes to money. They deal with problems as they come, make short-term decisions, and hope that one day they'll figure it out. But hope without structure is just stress in disguise. To move from financial survival to financial confidence, you need a vision, a clear, defined future you are moving toward. Without it, your nervous system remains stuck in uncertainty. And when your brain doesn't know where it's going, it will default to old habits and patterns simply because they're familiar. Creating a vision is not about fantasy or blind optimism. It's about giving your brain a target. The human brain is goal-oriented by nature. It's designed to map pathways, anticipate obstacles, and mobilize energy toward a direction. But you can't aim at something that doesn't exist. That's why financial goals that are vague or broad, like I want to be richer or I want to feel secure, don't work. They don't give the nervous system something concrete to build toward. A real vision is vivid. It's specific. It paints a clear picture of what your life looks like, how you feel in it, and what choices you get to make, because your money is working for you. Begin by defining what financial success looks like for you, not society's version, not your parents' version. Yours. Do you want location freedom, a stable home for your family, a business that supports your lifestyle, passive income that gives you peace of mind? Write it down in detail and include numbers if you can. But more importantly, describe the emotional state attached to it. What would your day feel like if money was no longer a stressor? What decisions would you make differently? What kind of person would you be? When your nervous system gets emotionally invested in a vision, it starts rewiring your behaviors to match that reality. Once the vision is clear, reverse engineer it. Work backwards. If you were already living that life, what decisions would you have made to get there? What habits would be non-negotiable? What skills would you have had to build? Reverse engineering takes something abstract and makes it actionable. It creates a roadmap. For example, if your vision includes owning a home in 5 years, you might need to save a certain amount for a down payment. That means you'd need to reduce certain expenses now or increase income. Suddenly, today's choices have context. They are no longer sacrifices. They are investments in your future. The brain loves sequences. When you give it a step-by-step plan, even if it's imperfect, it feels safer. It knows where it's going. And that feeling of direction reduces stress. You begin to act with more confidence because you're no longer guessing. You're building. Each small decision becomes a brick in a structure. And the more you build, the more momentum you create. That momentum reinforces the identity. I am someone who is creating a life of financial freedom. That identity shift is everything. A strong vision also creates boundaries. When you know where you're going, it becomes easier to say no to distractions. You stop wasting energy on things that pull you off track. You make decisions faster. You compare less. You simplify. The vision becomes your filter. Every opportunity, every expense, every temptation passes through the question, does this move me closer or further from the life I've committed to? This kind of clarity protects you from overwhelm. It eliminates decision fatigue. And it gives your nervous system room to relax because there's no longer a constant negotiation between short-term pleasure and long-term purpose. But vision alone is not enough. It must be revisited regularly. The brain needs repetition to rewire. If you write down your goals once and forget about them, they lose their grip. But if you engage with your vision weekly, visualize it, journal about it, adjust your plan around it, it becomes integrated into your subconscious. You start to think like the future version of yourself. You begin to feel emotionally connected to that person. And when the emotional bond is strong enough, you'll endure discomfort in the present to serve that future. It's also important to build in checkpoints. As you work toward your vision, break it down into smaller goals. If your long-term plan is to earn $100K a year from a business, your first checkpoint might be earning $500 from a side hustle. Celebrate that win. Let your brain register the progress. These checkpoints are not just milestones. They're reinforcement. They say, oh, the plan is working, keep going. Sometimes the vision will shift. That's normal. Life evolves. Priorities change. The point is not to stay rigid, it's to stay intentional. A vision gives you power. It keeps your financial life from becoming a reaction to emergencies or emotional impulses. It helps you anchor your energy, and that anchored energy is what allows you to act with consistency. In a world where uncertainty is constant, vision gives you internal stability. It reminds you why you're doing the hard work. It reminds you that discomfort is temporary, but regret is permanent. It pulls you forward when motivation runs low. It shapes your decisions, your environment, your identity. Ultimately, financial freedom isn't just about the numbers. It's about control, clarity, and peace of mind. And that all starts with a vision, a clear picture of the life you're building, combined with the courage to reverse engineer it step by step. When you create from the future instead of reacting from the past, you stop surviving and start designing. That's how you never stress about money again. Not because it's perfect, but because you know exactly where you're going and who you're becoming along the way. The truth about never stressing over money again is that it doesn't come from hitting a certain number in your bank account. It comes from transforming your relationship with money from the inside. When you regulate your nervous system first, you reclaim the ability to make clear, grounded decisions. When you automate what you can, you remove unnecessary friction and free your mind to focus on what truly matters. When you disassociate your identity from money, you stop tying your self-worth to your net worth. You begin to make choices based on values, not fear. When you lean into micro wins, you create the momentum your brain needs to believe that change is possible. When you build a vision and reverse engineer it, you give your mind and body a target that feels emotionally and practically real. This entire framework isn't about temporary motivation. It's about permanent nervous system safety, paired with intentional action. It's about learning to feel safe in growth, in discomfort, and in uncertainty so that you can follow through. Because when you change how your body and brain respond to money, you unlock clarity, confidence, and control. You stop reacting. You start creating. And that's how financial peace becomes not just a dream, but a lived experience. Stress about money doesn't vanish when you earn more. It vanishes when you build the internal tools to handle whatever comes, and those tools are now in your hands. Use them. Build slowly. Build consciously. Because the life you want isn't built in one giant leap. It's built one regulated decision, one micro win, one clear step at a time.